If you're ever at a baby shower, here is one joke you should never, ever tell. What is the difference between a child molester and little Johnny over there? Little Johnny doesn't go around doing this! Another joke you should never tell is this. Guys, have you ever thought about the fact that a baby monitor is just a really bad walkie-talkie? I mean, babies, they don't walkie or talkie. That last one isn't actually so bad as long as you don't pull down your trousers at the end. But, you know, muscle memory's a cruel mistress, ain't it? So for the third joke, I'm going to tell you, this is best if you say it to the pregnant woman herself. What you do is you go over to her and you say, "Hey lady, have you ever thought about the infinite monkey principle? You know what they say, that if you have a monkey and a typewriter and an infinite amount of time, that monkey will eventually write Shakespeare. Because if it's even the smallest chance possible, it will happen." Now the same principle is true if you were in a room with a little boy. And if you're in that room with a little boy for an infinite amount of time, you would eventually say to that little boy, "Hey, little boy, pull down those trousers." Not because it's a bad thing. I'm not advocating for that. But because it's possible that you could say that, and there's an infinite amount of time, you would eventually say, "Hey, little boy, pull down your trousers." And that's not a good thing. I'm telling you, I'm just saying, it's a fact. But if you think about it also, if there's a heaven where you live forever, heaven must be full of paedophiles, because everyone's giving sloppy to the kids, everyone's pulling down the trousers of little Johnny down the road, even your grandma is giving sloppy and getting back shots from Gandhi. Even that is happening, because if it's possible, it will eventually happen. Now, again, this is something you shouldn't say. I'm telling you not to say this, under any circumstances. Okay, let's go to the next bit. So these jokes have been a little edgy so far, you know, a little Ricky Gervais, you might say. And I'm not that kind of joke teller. I am not usually the kind of person to resort to shock humor. I think personally it's lazy. I think it takes much more skill to tell a funny joke about a pickle than about abusing a child. With that in mind, I've got a bit of an easier joke. You know, this could get a laugh if you deliver it right at a baby shower, but you still shouldn't say it. What you do is you go over to the pregnant lady, and usually they're quite worried, aren't they? The mother to be, because they're thinking, "Oh, is my child going to be okay? Are they going to be healthy? Will the birth go right?" Well, that's when you go up to them and you don't say this. "Oh, hey Vanessa," if her name's Vanessa. It never is. "Oh, hey Vanessa. I don't know if I've ever told you this, but my deepest fear is that my firstborn child will have Down syndrome." It is. Imagine waiting 9 whole months to meet your own son, only to find out you don't even want him to suck your cock. Again, you shouldn't say that. Luckily, you shouldn't say that in any context, really. But luckily, you've got me here to tell you what you shouldn't be saying, and for me to tell you what is right and wrong in the world of funny. Next joke. Now, this next bit isn't a joke per se. It's just a funny little conversation I had at the last baby shower I went to. What happened was, I went up to someone who was already a mother there, and I said, "Hey, you know when you gave birth?" And she said, yeah, I remember it. And I said, "Well, when you gave birth, was it painful?" And this is what she said to me. She said, "Well, if you think about it, reality can be modelled through the yin, yang and Tao in all of its entirety and fundamentals, as the Buddhists have done for thousands of years. The yin and yang being the constant battle between opposites, and the Tao being the way things are otherwise. For example, let's say you're a person who is deciding whether or not they should start smoking. There's two parts of themselves that are battling. One part is saying, "I think I'd enjoy this, it'd be nice." The other part is saying, "No, don't do it, that's a bad idea, you'll get addicted." And that battle throughout time creates their reality as a person who is considering whether or not to take up smoking. But let's say at some point they make a decision. They decide, "Yes, I'm going to start smoking." The yin and yang ceases, and then that bit of conflict is removed and instead becomes part of the Tao, the way things are. this person is now a smoker, and that can't change. Now, let's say after 5 years or so, that person says, okay, I'm really addicted, this was a bad idea, I need to stop smoking. The yin and yang come back into play, because there's a part of themselves saying, oh, I need to quit, this is bad, and the other part are saying, oh, this is really addictive, no, it's nice, don't stop. Because anything in the universe, be it a physical object, an action, or even a concept, has an opposite. Because in order for something to exist, there must also mean something for it not to exist. And so, in this way, we can make logical deductions about reality through these yin, yang, and tao. What we can say is that, yes, it's bad to smoke, because we can look at it through these principles, and we can say, objectively, it's not a good idea. And we can do this for any problem, any logical problem you can possibly think of, and you can come up with an answer. And what you find is, the solution to everything in the entire universe is infinite compassion. And when you realise that the solution to everything in the universe is infinite compassion, you cease to suffer at all. Because if you learn to meditate and control your emotions, you can choose whether or not you feel things. And when you have infinite compassion, not only does that affect others, but yourself. And when you have infinite compassion to yourself, and you realise that even if you're a flawed human being and you make mistakes and you do things like smoke, you still deserve compassion. And when you have compassion for yourself and you can choose whether or not you feel something, you would never actually choose to feel pain. And through that, you cease to suffer at all. And I said, but was it painful? And she said, yeah, it was painful. My fanny ripped open like a squashed kiwi. So that...